Hi chess friends, this is King's Executor covering my Game of the Day choice from round 4 of the Candidates Tournament 2013. And this is the most interesting and the only decisive game of this round 4 between Magnus Carlsen and Alexander Grischuk. I really want to put the focus on Carlsen's games, if there is not any other game which is more interesting each round. Because I think Carlsen is really the favorite to win this and to be able to challenge the world champion Anand after this. So Carlsen opened with e4, and now we are getting in a kinda a little bit untypical Spanish, where in this position many players try to crush the Berlin defense with white by trying to find any advantage in this position whatsoever. But I don't think that white can prove anything very easily. King e8 from black is here the main move, and afterwards black is trying to make use of his bishops, and white is trying to use his kingside pawn majority. And theory and games have proven that it's not at all easy to win against this with white. So in this position, instead of castling, Carlsen played d3, a solid move, and maybe trying to get the game out of the mainline theories with playing a little bit individually here. Okay, now the game starts practically. h3 firstly. I think it makes the life of this bishop a little bit more difficult where to put it. Of course, that bishop maybe is not the worst piece from the white side of from the white perspective, because that move isn't really a strong move after all. But okay, let's see what's developing from here. a6, and that knight is taken just to double black's pawns. Rook e1, that prepares d4 soon. Rook e8, knight b d2, d5. That pawn is taken. Of course, black wants to open up the game for his bishop pair. And in this position you see that this pawn is attacked too often, so the queen has to recapture. Knight b3 and bishop f8 here. And now Carlsen shows a funny move, with all regards, by playing c4. Playing such moves in blitz is practically very difficult for the side that plays this, because this pawn is backwarded. But let's see how Carlsen plays with this pawn structure. Queen e6 and bishop e3, and now you see that this bishop here doesn't seem very good, very well posted. The bishop could come here, for example, kicking the queen again, exchanging off maybe that bishop, and releasing black from the advantage of the two bishops. Knight d7 to keep that out of the possibilities, and d4 here, which gives this bishop another use in really controlling that d4 square. Well, if black takes this, well, you can take which way you ever want, and the point is that really this pawn structure is the theme for white to play against. But in this position, Grischuk pushed on, a5 here. That pawn is blockaded, and f4. So black is trying to play on the king's side and use his base there and his pawns. Of course, white has to keep that under control and then try to exploit the weakness of these pawns. c5 now. Again, leaving that d pawn behind. Queen g6 was Grischuk's move, and now there's this vacated square for the knight. c4. Knight back to f6. You see, black's development is kind of slow, and the pieces are rather uncoordinated. This rook is doing nothing. I think that rook would like to stay here, and that rook would like to be here, so there would be a greater chance of a successful kingside attack. It's not easy at all. In this position, white could have played knight e5. Let's drop back, and you really have to know that you have to calculate from this position on that the following, this was Carlsen's move, that the following line could occur, or similar lines. Black could sacrifice the exchange here and afterwards push on with f4, for example. If the bishop takes that, knight h5, gaining a tempo on the bishop, and the bishop has to retreat. Obviously g3 doesn't work. That wins a piece for black, so the bishop has to retreat. And of course there's this threat of bishop takes h3. So if this is why you would play bishop g3, that can be taken, and black regains a pawn and is still pressurizing white here. And believe it or not, the best move for white here is rook takes. But this position should be calculated before you play knight e5 here. So can you do that without running risk to miscalculate and run into a mating and losing position for white? Carlsen chose the very safe bishop f4 here to simply block that pawn, to give this bishop a better diagonal, and white is controlling these dark squares here. Knight d5 and queen d2. So in this blocked position, well, it's a rather blocked position for black. These bishops are hemmed in. They're just looking at pawns. And this is why white is not hesitating to give that nice bishop for the active knight. The queen would still blockade this pawn, and then white could infiltrate with knight e5 afterwards. Bishop e6 connecting rooks, and now the knight took the a pawn. So I think we all see now that white has an advantage. Rook e b8. Knight e5. Of course, let's just drop back. That pawn can be taken, but this weakness doesn't run away. So Carlsen tries to maximize his pressure with a gain of time against the queen. Queen f6. And now simply, well, that could have been the move. Knight takes c6. But I don't know if Carlsen likes to give black this activity on the second rank. And this is why first he played bishop h2. so that knight cannot deflect the queen by taking on f4. Now white's white's plan of taking that c6 pawn is safer in a way. Well, at least from a practical point of view over the board. Grischuk now tried to sacrifice the exchange to win this b pawn, because he would lose that c6 pawn anyway, and he tried to go to action with this. Rook a b1, rook a2. Well, white wants to exchange off that black rook on the second rank, of course. It's a little bit too active. And now there's a very interesting defensive move from white. Of course, you see these pawns are going to be pushed soon, probably. So queen a6. And now the sort of move I really like, if it works, is what Grischuk played here. This is a very scary position, but queen a6 is a very, very good move here. That pawn is taken, and well, why does black play in this manner? I think at some moment black wants to take that pawn, or remove the knight at least, and activate his bishop here towards the king side. And this only was able by, let's drop back, by getting rid of that blockading pawn. So again, takes, in queen g5. Now the threat of knight takes e3 and bishop d5 are more realistic. Rook e2. Now that queen's move really shows itself. But knight takes e3. If this rook would be taken in this position, then bishop takes, gains a tempo, rook b2, and bishop d5. Now you see that the black pieces kind of recovered. They're really active, and it's not easy at all to claim an advantage for white anymore. But Carlsen played really accurately. Before taking that rook on a2, he gained the tempo on the queen, so that a bishop d5 move is less threatening. The queen drops back, and now the rooks can be exchanged, and bishop c4 instead of bishop d5. Queen back to a5, and now bishop d5 is simply answered by queen e1. Now everything is covered, and if black would have tried bishop f3, then simply queen takes e3, and there's nothing on g2 here to attack. So Grischuk tried f4. The pawn is taken. Knight c2. And queen f2. Bishop f3. And now you see that after rook takes c2, well, the queen cannot take here, it's defended, and white just won a pawn here. In this position, I think Grischuk lost on time. He had a losing position anyways by Carlsen's accurate playing. And yeah, a really nice example of how to control the tactical opportunities of your opponent and of the position. And I'm looking forward for Carlsen to win this tournament. Right now, in round 4, he's leading together with Aronian. Both have 3 points out of 4. And now I'm really looking forward for the future of this tournament. Thank you a lot. Please subscribe, comment, and rate the game if you liked it. If you didn't like it, tell me why. Thanks.